Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are our headlines this evening. Kenya's election results have led to accusations of vote rigging, and clashes broke out just before those results were announced. The outgoing Deputy President has won a narrow victory over his rival, Raila Odinga. Soldiers from Côte d'Ivoire have been charged as mercenaries in Mali. Côte d'Ivoire contests the claim, saying the troops were sent as reinforcements to a UN peacekeeping mission. In Sudan, flooding has killed more than 50 people and affected at least 8,000 homes. We'll bring you a report on how the country is coping later on in the show. Thanks for watching. Now, it was a very close result in Kenya's election, but the Deputy President, William Ruto, has been declared the victor with 50.49% of the vote. His main rival, the opposition leader Raila Odinga, got 48.85% of the vote. For days now, each side has been claiming victory. Clashes and scuffles occurred just before the declaration when the Electoral Commission's vice chair and 3 other commissioners told journalists they could not support the final phase of the process. The suggestion was vote rigging. Let's take a listen to the election commissioner.
We cannot take ownership of the results that is going to be announced because of the opaque nature which these results have been handled. We'll give details of this opaque nature very soon.
For more now, we can cross to Nairobi and Vivian Wandera standing by. Good evening, Vivian. I suppose in some ways the worst fears really of what could happen in this election happened this evening with a very strong sense that the vote has been contested. Dramatic scenes there from the Election Commission with a suggestion of vote rigging and talk of opacity. Tell us what you're hearing where you are.
Well, the situation has now calmed down in different parts across the country, and about 7 cities are celebrating, like in Nakuru, in Lamu, in Nanyuki, here in Nairobi, in some places like Githurai, on Waiyaki, where people have been out celebrating the win, celebrating the candidate that they voted for. But also a little bit earlier in the day before the Deputy President, who is now the President-elect, arrived at the Bomas of Kenya, there were a lot of young people who were waiting for the former opposition leader Raila Odinga to arrive, but much to their disappointment, Raila Odinga did not come to the venue for the announcement of who the president-elect is, and these people kept yelling at the president, heckling him. At some point they threw stones at him, and these scenes have been seen in in a couple of other places in the country, like some places in Kibra, a few places in Kisumu, where the police had to disperse a group of youths that were protesting after the results were announced, and also in some parts of Nairobi, like Mathare, where there was some sort of disruption a little bit earlier, but the situation has now calmed down and people are home, people are celebrating.
Okay, so certainly a sense of celebration from the victors, but what chances are there that this could go to the courts, that Raila Odinga could contest the result, bearing in mind that he's only one of 4 candidates in total that are contesting, 4 of the 7 candidates contesting the result?
Well, the chances that Mr. Odinga could go to the courts are very high because as of now, he has not said anything. The only people who have been saying something are people who work for him, like his spokesperson and his running mate, who was said to be the deputy president, that is Martha Karua, who said all is not done, which means they could probably be heading to the courts tomorrow, as the Supreme Court is allowed only 14 days by the Constitution to listen to presidential petitions. But also there have been calls to the former opposition leader to concede and accept the results of this election, with many Kenyans saying they want to go back to work, they want their kids to go back to school and want life to go back to normal. And also the fact that he said at the beginning of the polls that if he loses, he's going to concede. So people are holding him to what he actually said.
Okay, thank you for that update, Vivian Wandera. Of course, we'll be talking to you again in the next couple of days as all of that evolves. Thank you. Now, let's take a listen to some reactions from MPs loyal to the winner, William Ruto.
It is absolutely deplorable that in the midst of international media, people were sent here to disrupt a very important and democratic process. But I thank God that we're here, and I believe that that is behind us. Such a thing will never happen again.
The Azimio leadership must apologize to the IEBC and the entire Kenyan population, because we did a vote and all the teams said they will accept the results.
Okay, after 9 years of counter-terrorism operations in Mali, the last French soldiers have now left the country. They crossed the border into neighbouring Niger this Monday. Relations between France and Mali soured dramatically following the 2021 coup d'etat there, leading French President Emmanuel Macron to announce a troop withdrawal shortly afterwards. Now, the so-called Opération Barkhane had seen a permanent French troop presence mostly in the north of the country for 9 years. They were combating an Islamist insurgency there. Our regional correspondent Sam Bradpeace has more about that French troop withdrawal.
French forces leave behind a country which is arguably less stable than when they were initially deployed back in 2013. Attacks by Islamist groups in Mali are rising almost exponentially. The Malian armed forces, backed by Russian mercenaries, are accused of perpetrating attacks and massacres of civilians. And most Western governments now advise against all travel to Mali, even to the capital, Bamako. That's a sign of how bad things have become there. Despite all of this, and despite the fact that 59 French soldiers at least were killed in operations in Mali, the French presidency has hailed Operation Barkhane as a success. It said that this operation allowed for the wiping out of many senior figures, in fact, most senior figures within the various Islamist groups now running rampant across the country. It also said that, that the operation prevented the establishment of a caliphate in Mali. France said it will continue to maintain counter-terror operations in the region, but also that it would look to increase its military commitment to various countries in Eastern Europe. The withdrawal of French forces to Niger and elsewhere means that the Malian junta looks likely to become ever more dependent on Russian mercenaries who have been operating in the country for months now.
49 Ivorian soldiers have been held captive in Mali for a month now, and they were officially charged with an attempt to undermine state security last Friday. Now, the arrest of the contingent has increased friction between the two West African countries. While Bamako claims the soldiers were sent to reinforce the United Nations peacekeeping mission there, Mali accuses them of being mercenaries. Nadine Taran has more.
Lieutenant Adam Sani Kwasi and 48 other Ivorian soldiers have been detained in Mali for more than a month now, with no word from Ivorian authorities on their fates. On Sunday, Mali's public prosecutor released a statement saying that the soldiers have now officially been placed under a detention order by the courts. They've been charged with conspiracy and attack against the government, threatening state security and carrying weapons of war. The soldiers were arrested on the 10th of July following their arrival at Bamako's airport. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara says they were sent to reinforce the UN's peacekeeping mission. On Sunday, a group of Ivorian youth protested for their release. There's been no official announcement from Ivory Coast about the latest developments, but Ivorians are hopeful that negotiations led by Togolese President Faure Gnassingbé will be successful. On Monday, the leader of the Transitional Authority, President Assimi Goïta, received the presidents of the African Union and Senegal, Macky Sall. Sall visited Bamako to check on its transition process before a similar visit to Chad. Upon his leaving the country, Sall applauded the Malian authorities' willingness to communicate and said he trusts that an African solution will be negotiated.
Funerals have begun for some of the 41 victims of an electrical fire that ripped through a Coptic Christian church in Giza, Egypt, on Sunday. Most of the victims died of smoke inhalation after the fire blocked the entrance to the church. Many of the deceased were children. Solange Moujan has more.
One after another, the deceased kept being brought in. Saying prayers and placing hands on the caskets in tribute, hundreds gathered to bid farewell. For it is an entire Egyptian Coptic community that has been plunged into mourning. After a fire broke out just before 9 in the morning on Sunday at the Abu Sifrin Church in Giza, just a few kilometers from Cairo. The blaze, which authorities said was due to an electrical fire from an air conditioning unit on the building's second floor, blocked the church's entrance and caused a stampede. Among the over 40 victims, more than a dozen were children who'd been in the church's nursery.
I saw them bringing dead people from the upper floor. Suffocation, all of them dead. There are children. We didn't know how to get to them. And we don't know whose son this is or whose daughter that is.
Some people threw themselves out of the windows to escape the fire.
While one of the worst fire tragedies in the country in recent years, electrical blazes are not rare in Egypt, namely in densely populated and dilapidated areas of Cairo and Giza. Both Egypt's Prime Minister and its President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi offered condolences to the victims' families. El-Sisi spoke with the Coptic Pope and directed the rebuilding of the church to be overseen by Egypt's engineering authority. Christian communities have regularly complained that the rebuilding of churches after fires are often delayed due to bureaucratic hurdles and discrimination towards the Coptic minority, which makes up some 10% of Egypt's 100 million people.
Now, floods triggered by seasonal torrential rain in Sudan have killed more than 50 people and inundated over 8,000 homes since the rainy season started. In some villages, residents left trapped by the rising waters or even unable to access medical care. Laurent Berstecker has the story.
Airing through the rubble, residents of Makelab could only watch in despair after their village was left in ruins by a massive flood. Most of their homes and belongings were destroyed, along with their precious crops. Trapped by the rising waters, they were also unable to access medical care.
There are people suffering from diarrhea and infections, but there's no medicine at all. The water's accumulating, nothing's being done about it. We also have a lot of mosquitoes because of the stagnating water.
Sparked by heavy rainfall, flash floods have been wreaking havoc in Sudan for the past 3 months, affecting some 38,000 people, according to the United Nations. The water also swept away entire harvests, impacting food security in a country already grappling with a spiraling economic crisis. In Al Jazeera state, just south of the capital, Khartoum, health authorities sought to reassure the population and said help was on the way.
We have trucks that are bringing aid, such as tents, food and medicine. They should arrive tomorrow morning.
Heavy flooding has become a frequent occurrence in Sudan during the rainy season, which lasts until September. In 2020, authorities declared a 3-month state of emergency after more than 100 people lost their lives in deadly flash floods.
All right, that's all for tonight's Eye on Africa. Thanks for watching.